My Thursday live stream where we talk about photography and catch up on what's new, what's been happening. And also, I always like to try to answer any questions you might have about Olympus or OM system cameras. That's what I'm most adept at. But photography questions in general, I'm always happy to try and answer. I do the best I can because, we can't know everything, right? There's always new fields or new areas of photography and creative uses of our cameras that um, are always new to me, right? And recently I got an email from DeMorgan, right? Many of you know him. He doesn't usually make it to the live streams, but he's been on the subscriber to the channel for a long time. But he he was doing some sort of photo shoot and where he needed to do high res shot mode and focus bracketing. And as far as I know, you can't combine those two features in our Olympus cameras. You have to pick one, either high res or focus bracketing, using the internal camera features. And my guess is he must be manually focusing to do the bracketing and then using high res shot mode. But more specifically, he said handheld high res shot mode focus bracketing. That would be a stretch for me because normally focus bracketing you need to be on a tripod uh, for the kind of shot he was doing. He was shooting a car or something, but you would normally need to be on a tripod so you keep the frame exactly the same, and all you're changing is the focus point, so that when you go back to stack these, you get a perfect match, at least in terms of framing, as close as you can. So I'm going to try that. I did some focus bracketing day before yesterday using regular mode, not high res shot mode, and the results are pretty good. But this idea of focus bracketing and handheld high res shot was interesting. So I might try it. I need to confirm though that he's talking about handheld high res, because that would be really difficult, to frame the shot hand holding, 20 shots. Let's say you take 20 shots, depending on your depth of field, of course. So I don't know if anyone here has done that. If you could leave a comment in the section, because he does watch the streams later. If you've ever done such a thing, and if you have any tips, specifically, he was talking about looking for lenses that don't have focus breathing, because he talked about when he was stacking, and I assume he was using Photoshop. I think he said that you get these holes in the stacking, and I'm not sure exactly what that means either. You get holes in the stacking. I mean, intuitively, you'd think these are defects in the stacking. When you're doing the stacking, there's defects in the image. I guess that's what he means by holes. But if he's talking about a very specific problem with stacking images, I'd be curious to know if you guys have any experience with this. Because focus breathing is definitely an issue on a lot of lenses. Most lenses, I would say, where the focus breathing is basically, if you're not familiar with what that is when you focus on a point, say close to the camera, versus focusing on a point further away, closer to infinity possibly, the field of view changes slightly. Meaning, at a close focusing distance, it might act, a 50 millimeter lens might act like a 45, and then when you get out to infinity, it acts like a 50 millimeter lens should, meaning in terms of the field of view and the focal length. And I can see where this is a problem when you're doing focus stacking, because the framing is changing. Not only is the focusing point changing, but the frame. And when you go to stack these, most software that's designed for focus stacking, as Photoshop is in this case, does account for that. Adjust, that slight difference, and it realigns everything, expands or shrinks things. And his very specific question was not about technique and all of that, because I assume he has that down. But what lenses in the Micro Four Thirds system has minimal, if no, focus breathing. And that's a very difficult thing to research because not many testing people that test lenses test for that, right? And when I researched the forums and looked online for focus breathing and researching focus breathing, a few people chimed in, and this is all anecdotal. I can't find any real testing on this. Well, I did find some, but I'll expand on that. They were saying that the 1.2 primes, particularly the 17, has virtually no focus breathing. The f1.2 Pro lenses from Olympus. The lenses that do have bad focus breathing is like the 12 to 40 Pro lens and the 60 millimeter macro lens have a lot of focus breathing and are virtually unusable, I guess, for focus stacking, which surprises me a little bit, particularly with the 60 millimeter macro lens, which I don't own, so I can't test for it or look for that issue. But I'm curious if you guys know, if anyone can leave in the comments, what lenses you found work really well for focus stacking, meaning it has minimal focus breathing. I think I did recommend looking at some cine lenses because cinematic lenses are designed specifically for video, where that's where you find most of the conversation about focus breathing is in video work. So I think I try to look for some reviews on cinematic lenses, and most of those reviews do talk about focus breathing. And only really the high-end lenses have good or little or no focus breathing, virtually none. I forget the brand name. I think it's the Ari Lexa, or that like these $20,000 lenses, right? These lenses, they actually, to compensate for the focus breathing, they actually have a moving element inside that zooms the image slightly in and out as you're focusing to compensate for the focus breathing. So I guess that sort of justifies why it's so expensive a little bit, right? Because there's a lot of additional optical design that goes into a cinematic lens, a high-end cinematic lens versus the low-end cinematic lenses. Because a lot of the low-end cinematic lenses that you can buy for like $400 or $500, they have a lot of the optical qualities of the high-end cinematic lenses, meaning, cinematic lenses are a whole different breed of lenses. And, meaning, they have similar size, weight, focus throw, T-stops for accurate lighting, and also the design with the rails and stuff, so to work with focusing systems that you would attach to the lens for focus pulls and things. So there's a lot of things about focus cinematic lenses that go beyond what any normal photographer would need. These are very specialized lenses for cinematographers, and they design them this way, obviously for consistency, right, across the line in terms of size and weight, filter ring size, all of this stuff needs to be standardized in a way that when a cinematographer is in the field or on set, they can quickly swap lenses and not have to change all of their gear and make adjustments again. A 35 millimeter lens will fit in just the same as a 50 millimeter lens, and the focus pull and everything, the filter rings, the threads that will go in, because they got these things I forget what it's called, but it's a matte box that collapses in and out or swivels in and out. I mean, there's all kinds of things, right? And these lenses are, gosh, it's so expensive, and I seriously doubt that that's, something most of us would even consider. It's not in our budget or in our field. This is the kind of gear you usually just rent as a if you're making a film or something, you usually just rent all this equipment. In fact, some lenses are only rentable; they're not for sale on the high-end cinematic lenses. They don't sell them; they rent them. And I so I found that fascinating. This focus breathing issue. So I did a quick test with my 25 millimeter f1.8 and my 17 millimeter f1.8, and they focus stacked just fine, and the focus breathing looked minimal, but I don't know exactly how to look for it, right? Um, so what I need to I need to start pixel peeping and drawing lines and grids on the images so that I can try to figure out where the focus breathing or how bad the focus breathing is on a particular lens. And so I'm going to explore this particular aspect, not just for Demorkin's sake, because I'm always happy to try to help best I can in research, bringing all my experience that I have, limited as it is, to try and help anyone that reaches out to me. Uh, but I also found a very fascinating topic, right? High res shots with focus bracketing, because I never in my mind put those two things together because they're separate in our cameras, but they are. But there's somebody combining these two techniques or one technique and one feature to create their images, because they need their image to be sharp in focus from about 6 feet or 2 meters out to infinity. And the only way to accomplish that is really through focus bracketing. So again, if you haven't already, I'll check the comments here in a moment. If you haven't already, um, leave a comment. Oh, I see Jeff Painter's here. Jeff would probably have a good answer, right? Because he was in the movie industry at a very high level. So let me check in the chat, see how everybody's doing. Darko is here. Awesome. Good to see you. Good morning. Oh, you're EM1. The board died. That happened to my EM5 Mark III, but fortunately it was under warranty, so I had it sent in and fixed. I doubt you're still under warranty. If you're talking about the Mark I or Mark II, I seriously doubt you're under warranty at this point. Might be worth it just to buy another one. And yeah, Olympus has, yeah, I think Peter and Robin and Jimmy, all three of them have talked about the innovation over the years that Olympus has come up with, and they were the first in a lot of situations. But Darko says, I'm researching and finding how much Olympus innovation from 10 years ago that is now only emerging in other brands. Pre-AF, it blows my mind how Ollie was ahead of its time. And it's really just about giving photographers tools to make their job easier, right? And Olympus was definitely on the leading edge. Another company that I came up last night in one of my classes, actually. I've actually started doing online classes again. It's been a little awkward, though. It's not going as smooth as, I mean, the classes are going well and everybody's happy, but because the feedback's very good. But when I rewatched one I did last night, I record them for my own personal use to kind of fine tune my teaching, and eventually I'll make a video and I'll post it here on YouTube as well. Specifically about the topic I may have covered in class. Like the video I did on aperture was actually a transition from a classroom type material that I have to YouTube video, and that segue between the two mediums are not as easy as I thought. It takes a little bit more work in making a YouTube video. It takes a lot more work to make a YouTube video than actually teaching a class live or in person. Uh, but yeah, we were talking about how Minolta had um, some feature very early on. Well, Minolta was very innovative in its day. I can't remember what it was. It was Dave Tellett was telling me about it. And Pentax had some interesting features like the astro tracking. uh, there are companies, the smaller companies like Olympus and Pentax. They have to try harder and do more things with their cameras to attract buyers because they just don't have the budget for marketing and advertising. Even though they have the legacy, they've been making cameras and lenses forever. They don't have quite the marketing savvy, I would say, because you can market things on a budget, but because there are a lot of products that just went totally word of mouth, right? But anyhow, yeah, I agree, Darko, that Olympus has been very innovative on the digital side. I'd like to see more of that, really. Pull things from, uh, figuring out tools that would help us as photographers. Like a good one would right now would be combining focus bracketing and high res shot mode. It's just a programming tweak. The functionality is already there. It's just a matter of putting those two things together, right? And that's something they could do, I think, in a firmware update. I can't think of any technical reason they couldn't do that. So if they keep expanding on these kinds of things, and I understand these are very niche, very limited type of features that probably 99% of buyers are not looking for, right? So why bother is maybe one aspect of it. But on the other hand, when you want to have that reputation over time of always being on the leading edge and providing features that other manufacturers are ignoring, because I'm sure every manufacturer thinks about these things. These are not, uh, out of this world, outside the box type features. These are features that would make our jobs as photographers easier and help us to do a better job. The out of the box type features is like live composite. I thought that was totally thinking outside of the box. That was a very innovative feature that we've seen in a few other cameras recently, but not so much. But and Pro Capture, I thought was an excellent feature. I don't think that's been done before Olympus. So lot of great features, but they need to continue um, that sort of quality, or what's the word? They need to continue doing things like that, right? So that over time, when people think about cameras that are innovative and bleeding edge, they think Olympus or they think OM systems. Because if you think about like Fuji, it used to be they always got firmware updates and they were really well known for that. So people buying a camera can feel confident that in the future their camera will be upgraded over time to its maximum capability through firmware updates. And people in the Fuji community know that and appreciate it. And that word of mouth gets out. Um, and even though Fuji doesn't have to market their cameras that way, right? It's just kind of known in the Fuji community. Once you buy a Fuji, you can feel pretty safe that they're going to do firmware updates to continue upgrading that camera in significant ways. I'm not talking about just bug fixes, but doing improvements like an autofocus or stabilization or adding features that newer cameras have that the older cameras certainly capable of, like color profiles. There's no reason you can't put color profiles from any camera in your lineup to another camera, because that's just pure programming and coding. Aside from, yeah, I know there's Bayer arrays and color lenses and everything on the sensor that could make that more difficult, but I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. These are things I think that they can do over time. And this is what Olympus and OM Systems needs to do is, to me, Olympus, their focus is on small size and weight and travel photography. And I get that. And they need to emphasize that. And they have been, but they need to cover another point about not having to use a tripod. And I'll come back to that if I remember. But but yeah, being known for innovation and bleeding edge type features and technology is something Olympus and OM System needs to continue, because that is free marketing for them. Because when someone comes to me and asks me why do I shoot Olympus, my number one reason is size, weight, image quality, all of that. But I can tell them about the other benefits of the camera that you're not going to find in other cameras, like live composite and pro capture and um, uh, escapes me. But the Olympus cameras have a lot of features that you won't find in other cameras. But unfortunately, when they're marketing their cameras, they try to compete on the spec level. We now do 4K 60 on the OM1. It's like everybody's doing that. That's not bleeding edge. It's nice that you have it now, but it's not going to sell any cameras telling somebody you got 4K 60, because everybody has it. You have to sell them on things that your camera does or can do that other cameras cannot. And they went with the low hanging fruit with size and weight. And the one thing that I realized, I watched the because I don't like to travel. I did it a couple of times when I was younger, and I said, yeah, okay, I traveled the world. I said, okay, that's enough. It was a good run, but I don't need to travel anymore. And last time I was physically on a plane, I think was like 19. I'm guessing 1998 is the last time I was on a plane. I could be wrong. It definitely was not in. Definitely after year 2000, nothing. I've never been on a plane, because in year 2000, we had the 9/11, and airport security beefed up and all of that. I didn't stop flying because of 9/11. I stopped flying long before that, a couple of years before that. So it's probably 98. But I was watching I think it's the B&H live thing that they had going on. And I recommend you guys watch it. It's pretty awesome. I mean, it's like 7 hours or something ridiculous. Uh, but there really are, there's a really, I'm going to watch them again and take a lot more notes. I took a few notes while I was watching it. But I was watching, they had, I think his name was Scott Kelby, was on talking about taking better travel photos, right? So, a topic that I don't travel, so I'm like, I'll watch because it's Scott Kelby, right? He's got a name. If somebody says Scott Kelby in the photography community, everybody will at least recognize that name, I would think. I don't know what he's known for, because I don't follow him or watch him or anything, but he's pretty well known, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to watch him because it's Scott Kelby. I don't know anything about him, but apparently he's a big deal, because when his name comes up, when I hear his name, I'm like, oh, Scott Kelby. Okay. He's a big deal. So I was watching him, and he's really a good speaker, and he did a terrific presentation on travel photography. But a lot of the things he talked about, I was thinking to myself, OM Systems would be the perfect camera for a lot of the things he talked about in travel photography. A, because of the obvious size and weight, but B, because a lot of places now, when he travels, they don't allow tripods. Cathedrals, libraries, wherever you go in the world, and you go into architectural, indoors, outdoors, anywhere you need a tripod, they don't let you use one. Like he was staying at the Dubai, I think it was Dubai, anyway, some fancy hotel. And they wouldn't let him use a tripod to take a picture of the hotel. So it took, and he tells a really great story about how he's eventually able to get to use a tripod. But the Olympus camera system, you can get away without using a tripod in almost every situation he talked about and still get a great image, because he resorted to techniques that you would normally do when you don't have great image stabilization in a system. You have your normal lens stabilization, or you have the crappy full frame image stabilization in all these cameras. They don't hold a candle to what you can do with the Olympus image stabilization system in terms of hand holding shots and doing weird angles. But particularly when you need a tripod for other cameras, you don't really need one when you use an OM system in a lot of scenarios. So, and I know Olympus and OM system talks about that it's the perfect travel companion, but they focus a lot, and this is just my impression, right? Is they focus a lot on the weather sealing and the ability to go places, in all these crazy places out for landscapes and doing sports action photography. But I think they're missing, the point that a lot of places you go to now don't allow tripod, monopod, don't let you do anything with a tripod. And this is another area I think OM systems can add to their marketing without deviating from their main message, but adding to it and expanding to it in a positive way. Because clearly Olympus and OM system has ditched, street photography, portrait photography, wedding photography, all kinds of photography. They just don't even talk about it, right? Even though we all use it for those things, but they don't talk about it. Not in any kind of serious messaging way. But I think travel photography and talking about how you don't need a tripod for a lot of things would definitely be a nice addition to their core message of it being a small, lightweight system that you can take anywhere, right? So just my thoughts there. Okay, that was a long ramble on that comment, but thanks, Darko. I think it is an important point, though, about what Darko's saying about Olympus, how they're always leading edge, or have been. Hopefully they will continue to be in the future. Dave is here. Randy, good to see you. Lasse, good to see you. Wow, a lot of people here. Roberto, good day, Roberto. And Jeff, of course. Music Sound Gear is here. Oh, wow. You're usually working, though, when these streams are on. And Serge, good to see you. Wow, I don't see. Well, actually, you do come in pretty often. Marco, good to see you. Marco's always here. And Andrew Galloway, good to see you. Good morning. Ed Krisiak, good morning. Tony says, okay, Tony has a question. Let's see. Says, I'm searching for a battery case for my extra BLH1 batteries. I can't seem to locate one big enough without being way too big. If anyone can help me with the source, that would be great. If you're talking about hard plastic cases, yeah, I can see where that would be difficult. If you're talking about the more pouches like you use for lens filters and things, maybe look for some lens filter pouches that are for smaller lens filters, right? Those would work pretty well. And batteries that have a very similar size. I know that my Panasonic S5 battery is virtually identical in size to my OM1. Let me just put them side by side. Let me just double check. Because you know how things seem the same, but then they're not, right? When you actually put them side by side. Yeah, they are virtually identical. The the S5 battery is about 1 millimeter taller, and then width they're identical in width, but this is about 1 millimeter taller. So I would bet that well, the BLH1 is not the same as the OM1. Hold on. Here's my BLH1, sorry. The BLH1 is actually, wow, it's about 3 millimeters shorter. It's about 3 millimeters shorter and 3 or 4 millimeters wider. So yeah, I'm sorry. Let me take all that back. Don't buy battery cases that you might find for like GH5 or S5. The GH5 uses the same size battery. Uh, but yeah, I would try a filter case if you want to do that. With the little pouches and stuff. Is the only thing I could recommend. But hopefully, someone has a better idea than that than I have there. Uh, Stephen Long says, "Would not an old manual lens be good for focus stacking?" It'd certainly be easier to focus through the range, I think, than a by wire lens. Even though the Olympus focus by wire is really good, uh, nothing beats a good solid, vintage lens. But I think they definitely would have focus breathing problems because they were not they were. I don't think that was something that vintage lens, older cameras even cared about at all. So my guess would be the focus breathing would be really bad on older lenses, where it would make this particular application useless. But that's an assumption on my part based on what I know about lens design, which is very little. But you have to design lenses very specifically for macro, for normal photography. They're designed very differently, and uh, cinematic lenses versus normal photographic lenses, their designs are all very different. And vintage lenses were designed specifically for uh, photography, right? And I know a lot of the film lenses from back in the day were very, very simple designs. Your typical, um, what's it called? It's trio plan, whatever. Very simple designs that have been around forever. And I would think that if focus breathing was not an issue in modern lenses, meaning if focus breathing was not an issue in vintage lenses, it wouldn't be an issue now, but it is. Uh, just an educated guess. You never know till you try, though, right? Using a rack when focus stacking. Now, a rack, yeah, that's definitely another option. But the rack is still moving the lens. I think in macro focusing, it's not an issue, right? Using a rack. Uh, but he's talking about like 6 feet to infinity. And that's not, well, I'm sorry. I was thinking of a bellows. A rack is different. The entire camera moves. But now you're changing the focus plane of the camera sensor itself versus changing the focus plane inside the lens, right? Changing the focus point inside the lens. You're not changing the focus plane of the sensor on a rack, and that's just as bad as focus breathing, really. Now, I I can see where if you adjust the rack to compensate for the focus breathing as you're manually focusing, then you could, in theory, eliminate focus breathing, because now you're changing the focus plane of the sensor versus the focus breathing in the lens. But I don't know how that's practically possible. I mean, in theory, I know that works, but I don't know how you would do that in all practicality. Now, another interesting thing I found out was that the cameras, like the GH5, GH6, they use the software in the camera to compensate for focus breathing in the lenses. And that's why some lenses, like the 12 to 35 f2.8, has minimal, if any, focus breathing, because that focus breathing is corrected inside the GH5. However, what happens when you put that 12 to 35 lens on an Olympus camera? Does the Olympus camera have the same sort of software compensation for focus breathing? I don't know. I don't have a Panasonic camera, or I don't have a Micro Four Thirds Panasonic camera, or a 12 to 35 f2.8 to do that kind of testing, right? So when you hear somebody say, when you're reading in a forum and somebody says, oh, the 12 to 35 f2.8 has no focus breathing, right? You got to know what camera they're using it on. If they put that on an Olympus camera and tell me there's no focus breathing, then that tells me that the Olympus cameras also have that focus breathing compensation built into the algorithm in the camera. And I seriously doubt it, but maybe, right? Who knows? I don't have any way to test for it because these are not lenses I own or bodies that I own. But it's very interesting. So a lot of things are corrected in camera. Like a lot of us are aware of that, right? It corrects for distortion, corrects for chromatic aberrations to some extent, and whatever other kind of lens defects you might have that can be corrected in software are corrected in camera into the raw image. So this focus breathing issue in video on the 12 to 35 f2.8 lens is corrected in camera, but I don't know if it's corrected on Olympus bodies or not. So that's another thing to consider when you're looking at focus breathing. And I only found a couple of places that tested for focus breathing, and they were very limited tests, right? They were testing something not even 6 feet away. So they weren't testing from like the minimum focusing distance to infinity. They were testing a very small range. And I don't think that's going to work in the particular application that Demorkin was talking about. He needs 6 feet to infinity with no focus breathing. So there's that. Anyway, Michael Voice says, time, oh, wow, I'm 20 minutes behind. I do not think high-res uses focus stacking. It does not. It uses focus shifting to shift in the same plane. No focusing takes place. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So I'm sorry if I confused anyone, because Michael here is clarifying for us, right? Exactly what we're talking about. High-res shot mode is not changing the focus point. It's only changing it's shifting the sensor in whatever direction to gather 80 megapixels or however many it does for a high resolution image without changing the focus point. Focus bracketing and focus stacking are also different. Focus bracketing is changing the focus point as you take your pictures. Focus stacking is the act of putting those pictures you just took and putting them together. So bracketing and stacking are different verbs, different functions, different acts, right? One is the act of taking the pictures and changing the focus point. Focus stacking is the act of compressing those back into a single image. Seal said, I'd love to see flash triggers somehow built right into the cameras. Yeah, radio triggers. I would suspect that they're not going to do that. If you're talking about a radio trigger, because the EMF, electromagnetic energy or frequency emitted by radio frequencies, can cause noise on the sensor. So I doubt it. Never mind draining the battery to zero, by having radio transmitters built into the camera. A better solution would probably be, the one solution that is built into most cameras now is the infrared, or Nikon used to call it the CLA, Creative Lighting Assistant. I think that's what it was called, or CLS. Anyway, there are certain ways to control the flash in camera via a flash attached to the top of your camera. So what the camera will do is control other flashes. The camera will control the on-camera flash to control the other flashes. So a lot of Olympus cameras already do that. So if you attach an Olympus branded flash, it has to be matched, right? You have to have an Olympus flash and Olympus camera. It'll control other Olympus flashes. And that's the best you can do in camera, because that does not add any radio frequency type interference onto the sensor. And it's a separate battery, so it doesn't drain the battery. And I'm sure there's other technical reasons they wouldn't do that in a camera. If there are cameras out there that do that, they're designed, they're probably much bulkier because they have to add a lot of shielding of the sensor from the radio transmitter. And that would interfere with the ability of the transmitter to transmit, thereby limiting the range. So it's always better to have a separate radio transmitter that's free and clear of the metal body of professional cameras, because if they put radio transmitters inside the camera, they would have to add some plastic parts to the camera in areas where that transmitter is, and it's a problem that happens a lot actually on laptops with the Wi-Fi. They have plastic bits. Most laptops are plastic, but the metal ones, the laptops that use some sort of aluminum casing, they have to have plastic bits around the Wi-Fi card so that the Wi-Fi can transmit and not lose any range, or get reflected in a way that limits its range. So yeah, I don't see that happening in camera. You're going to be limited to using an external flash. Nikon also has and I don't know if Olympus has one. I think they do. They have a transmitter that you can put on top of the camera. That's not a flash. It's simply a transmitter. And I think it uses an infrared signal to control the other Olympus flashes. But again, you have to use all Olympus gear. And that's another way. But it's external, which is not what you're looking for. Okay. Rick is here. Hey, Rick, how you doing? And Adam Farr, good to see you. Adam says they need to let me save custom modes for video. Their customizations are what they known as set beginner and pro mode. If they fear scaring off new users. Yeah. When they said that you could save video modes in the new OM1 to the custom modes, I haven't been able to do it. Granted, I haven't looked that hard to see if I could do it. I'll have to look in the manual if there's any clues there as how to do it, because I remember in a video that Peter Forsgaard did, he said that you can save video modes to the custom settings. So I haven't explored that. I just saw a video this morning by Casey, Camera Conspiracies, where he was complaining that the OM1 didn't save the custom modes. But Casey is not an OM ambassador. He's not an expert by any means. He's an entertainment channel. And I love his channel. I don't want to take anything away from the kind of reviews that he does or any advice he gives on camera gear. I'm not taking away from any of that because his audience probably appreciates the kind of advice he gives. But when he talks about very specific features on the Olympus cameras or OM system cameras, like saving video custom modes to a custom mode, I would take that, but I would do my due diligence to double check, right? So, and that's true of anybody, anything you see online. Always do your own due diligence when it comes to a very specific thing that you're looking for. Don't trust me, don't trust Peter or Robin or anybody. Don't trust them 100%. Sure, come to us as guides and as reliable sources, but always do your own due diligence. We're human beings. We can make mistakes. We don't know everything, right? So just like with camera conspiracies, I don't want to take anything away from what he does. I love his channel. God, his video this morning that I saw was hilarious. So I look to him for more entertainment value and some of his insights, trying all these different gears just for fun and and that's why his channel is so great, because he doesn't take himself too seriously. And he's just using it like anybody would if they just go out and buy a camera, which I think, like most people, they have no clue how to buy a camera even, because it can be very intimidating. And he, I think for a lot of viewers, they appreciate his approach to it in that way, that he's buying it and trying it. And he admits, half the time that, yeah, he may have gotten the setting wrong. He doesn't know. But to his point, it shouldn't be that hard. A camera should just work. When you tell it to do something, it should do that without having to dive, 3 levels deep into a menu to find that setting that makes it work. So I get it. I get it why the menus are so deep sometimes, to give us options and control that you wouldn't otherwise have. And I appreciate that. Please do not simplify the menus. I'm not saying simplify the menus. Or I'm not saying simplify the camera, but simplify the menus the best you can, right? Don't simplify the camera. Keep the camera, make it as complicated as you want, but make the menu system and the access to the features more intuitive and more automatic, but allow us to deep dive if we want to. But anyhow, yeah, I'll look into it. That video I saw by Casey this morning intrigued me a little bit. And the fact that Peter, in one of his videos, said you could save video modes to the custom settings. So I need to explore that, because people have been asking me to do a menu walkthrough on the OM1. And, I can't do a menu walkthrough until I'm really confident I got everything down to the best that I can. But we'll see. Druid says, talking of Fuji, I'm being tempted by the dark side, the Fujifilm simulation. I can't decide between an E4 and XT30. I don't know. I bought my XT30 specifically because I was very interested in the film simulations. It's not that big a deal. I mean, to me, some people love it. You got fans of the film simulations. They don't even bother to shoot RAW anymore. They just shoot using the simulations built into the camera. I'm just not that kind of shooter, I was, with the Olympus, I used a lot of the art filters, and I still enjoy them to some extent. When I'm just having fun, right? And I want to just play with the scene, Because it might be a scene I've taken 1,000 times, and I said, well, let's try this with an art filter, how it looks. Yeah, we can use that straight out of camera. I don't have to process at all. I'm just having fun, right? But more recently, I've, since getting Photolab 5 and 4, the Photolab DxO's editing software, I've been a lot more diligent with my photo editing and shooting raw most of the time now and editing raw and applying. If I want to apply a filter, I can just do it in OM Workspace. It's not say I'm abandoning the art filters. I use them time to time. I used one the other day actually when I went out on my photo walk. I used some, and I got fun results with it. And the Fujifilm simulations are no different. They have a certain appeal and look to them that some people are totally content with, and they'll shoot with that. But to me, when I looked at it, I was like, the differences were so subtle that any minor tweak you do in post-processing kind of washes away the original film simulation look. Because you can edit in RAW, then export with the film simulation using the Fuji software. I forget what it's called. So you can shoot in RAW and then later apply the film simulation using their software. But I bought the DxO film pack for, I think I paid $50. I bought a whole package from DxO. It was like $250 for everything. I got the perspective thing, the DxO with the deep prime, and the film pack 4 or 5, whatever, the version before the new one. There's, I think 5 or 6 is out now, but I have the previous one. That to me is, if I want to do film simulations and effects, I'll just use that on my raw images after I process them. And doing it in camera, like the Fujifilm simulations, has really lost all of its appeal to me at this point. So if you buy Fujifilm X-T 30 or an E4, either one is fine. I think the E4 is, the rangefinder style, but it still has a viewfinder and it's a little smaller overall. I would just buy the cheaper of the two, whichever one is cheaper, if you're going to get a Fuji. And, when you buy a camera for a very specific feature like that, like a film simulation, to me, that's the wrong reason to buy a camera. Like I did. It was a mistake for me to buy that XT30, honestly. I mean, I like the camera, it's growing on me, but I bought it initially because of the film simulations. And then after I did a couple of photo walks with it, I was like, meh, it's okay. It's okay. It's nothing I can't do with my Olympus or using a film simulation thing that I have with my software. The look is not so unique that you have to have a Fuji to do it. You can get a very unique look from Olympus through their art filters, or you can get a unique look using the film pack software. But we'll see. I mean, the Fuji, my XT30 it's a nice little compact camera. I just bought a 35 millimeter f2 for it because I like that 50 millimeter equivalent now. I'm really digging that focal length. But yeah, the film simulations are really at the bottom of my list now. I really look for the ergonomics of the camera, the size, the weight, the overall system of lenses and things available. Like I was looking at, like I have a Canon EOS M50 that's sitting there for nothing. I think if I got a 50 millimeter equivalent lens for it, I might use it more often. Just like I just bought a 50 millimeter f1.8 for my S5. And now actually I really like using this camera for photography. I bought it originally for video work that I do, but now that the OM1 has 10-bit log, well, it's always had log, but now that it's 10-bit, this has become less useful. Now, don't get me wrong, this thing still blows the OM1 out of the water when it comes to video. Just blows it out of the water. But for the kind of work that I deliver, the OM1 is more than capable now. The EM1 Mark III was very capable, but not quite there because it didn't have the 10-bit. I didn't have the dynamic range I needed to adjust the images. But now with the 10-bit video, I have the dynamic range I need in camera, so that, and it has to be in camera. I know you can attach an external Atomos something, Ninja, right? But I can't do that on a gimbal. I could, but my God, the gear and the rig would just get huge, right? Because now you're packing on SSDs, additional batteries. I mean, just a ton of crap. And I'm already kind of maxed out on on weight and gear with the gimbal that I have. So anyway, I bought the 50 millimeter for this, and let me tell you, Panasonic, they did an amazing job. I should do a review on this lens. They did an amazing job on this lens. This lens is amazing. I mean, tack sharp and really smooth bokeh. I have to check the focus breathing. I doubt it's very good at that. Even though Panasonic's known for videography and minimizing focus breathing would be ideal, I don't know how it would actually work in practice. I'd have to try it, unless they did all the correction in camera, through software to fix the focus breathing. But anyhow, yeah, buying an XT30 just for the, I don't recommend it. It's not worth it just for that. Yeah, I'm with you, Randy. I'd rather drive everywhere. Of course, the way gas prices are right now, I just calculated it cost me about $500 to go to Florida and back by car with the amount of gas I need. I'm like, wow. And that's a car getting 35 miles to the gallon, I mean, my car gets about 35 consistently. I get a little better if I'm really paying attention, but I get 35 consistently, which ain't bad. But man, it's getting expensive to go anywhere, either by plane or by car. And I'm not sure you agree with what I was saying or not, but I think you are. Basil says, I've made the same argument about color profiles. Makes total sense. Fuji proves the case. So I'm a little bit, but I wanted to share your statement either way. Whether you agree with me or not, I try to share everybody's points of view because there's no wrong answer, really, right? When it comes to the creative side of photography and art and how people use their cameras. It doesn't matter. As long as you're enjoying the process and having and getting fulfillment out of it, there's no wrong answer, in my opinion. Sigma FPL, any thoughts as a pure stills camera for landscape? I think the L is the high resolution one because they had two FPs, right? And I don't see the appeal unless there's some price point. I don't know what they cost even. Let me just look at the specs of an FPL before I say anything else. because it's not a camera I own, so I have to look at it like everyone else would. Oh, Sigma FPL. So I'm sure you've already seen the DP review. So what are they saying? 61 megapixel. Unsensor phase detect. Okay, I detect full frame silent electronic shutter. 8-bit video. Wow, it's not really. Oh, 4K output, 12-bit DNG cinema. Okay, so external is 12-bit. With a viewfinder, wow, $3,000. Um, and it uses the L mount lens mount. Okay. Only electronic shutter, so it's like the Z9. 2.1 million dot EVF. 427 grams. And I guess the output is what? DNG? Whatever, it has raw output. I think it's DNG though. Okay. My opinion, if I were buying this camera, right? I'll leave this up. I'll leave this up. There's the core things, right? If I were buying a camera for landscape specifically, and we're talking about 2,500 to $3,000, I would probably steer you towards like a Sony A7R4, right? Do they have that? Oh, they have the comparison right here. 3,500. Because one is, you're gonna have a real camera for $1,000 more, and you're gonna have a wider lens selection. The L mount lens selection is very good right now. I mean, good enough, but it's better on the Sony, right? You'll have a real camera and a fully flushed out system. Does this even have? I mean, the only real advantage this FPL has is the compactness of the body, right? And you would be framing most likely with just the LCD if you didn't buy the external EVF. It doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather for $500 more, I'd rather get a Sony A7R4 if you want 61 megapixels. You'll have better lens selection, and it's important to have good lens selection because you'll find quality lenses for less money, right? Whereas on the L mount system, there's Sigma, there's Leica, and then there's Panasonic. And Panasonic has some good choices, like this 50 millimeter. I got uh, I got this for, like, with all my discounts and rebates, and I got this for $300 all in. So and this is an excellent lens. I mean, pin sharp. But they have a 35, and I believe they have even wider, right? Um, they might have. I think they have a 20 millimeter also. And they're reasonable prices. They're all under $1,000. And you could get you can do high-res shot mode on this S5, which will give you 90 megapixels, I think. I think it's 90. I haven't tried it yet on this camera. But you can do high-res shot. And this camera you can buy for about $1,000 right now, used, right? In mint condition. If it was mine, it'd be hardly used at all. It'd be like brand new. But I'm not going to sell this. I really like this camera, actually. But you could buy this camera, use the high-res shot mode, and if we're talking about landscapes, because high-res shot mode has its limitations with moving subjects, right? You could buy this camera with a 20 millimeter. Let's see what a 20 millimeter let's see, Panasonic L mount. They have a 20? They do. $400. Sigma's 900. They have a 24. All right. So they have a 24 millimeter 1.8, and I'm sure this is an excellent lens. If it's anywhere near as good as the 50 that I have. So for a camera body for 1,000, and you get this lens for 900, and you could put this lens on the Sigma just as easily, right? I think that would be a better way to go, honestly. I mean, if I was doing landscape all the time, this is the camera I'd actually want to buy. It's a Fujifilm X100S or T. What's that? Maybe it's a GFX. Yeah, now we're talking. Wow, why is that $6,000 used? I would look at this camera, the 100 or the 50. But yeah, now we're talking big bucks, right? I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting camera, the Sigma, 61 megapixel full frame for $2,500. That's a chunk of change just to use it for one thing, you know. Unless you're doing landscape all the time, then I think a GFX would be a better way to go. I haven't heard any landscape photographer complain about a GFX, either the 50 or the 100, when it comes to doing landscapes. I think Thomas Heaton uses one. That other dude here in the U.S., I forget his name, Mark Denny, maybe. He uses a GFX. Lot of photographers, they use medium format for a lot of their landscape type stuff. That might be a better way to go and save up for something like that. And I would skip the Sony A7R4. I'd skip the Sigma FP. I would just go straight for a medium format, because then we're talking about not only will you have the megapixels you need, but then you got these humongous pixels to gather with, right? And you get really amazing dynamic range. Those are the landscape cameras to get. But the FP alone at $2,500 and maybe another $900 for a lens like that 20 millimeter, it just seems like it's a little bit too niche, you know. It's just a little bit too limited as a camera if you're going to spend that kind of money. And then you're only going to get 61 megapixels. I don't think you really get any better. You don't get significantly better image quality than even a Micro Four Thirds. And just hear me out, okay? Because I know that's a huge statement, right? Because, you know, shooting with my full frame S5 and my OM1 side by side, not side by side necessarily, but I've been shooting both lately. No question, the S5 is giving me cleaner images, but ultimately, um, when you set an OM1 down, mounted on a tripod, get a nice sharp lens, um, you're going to get amazing image quality out of that. And the difference between the two, you'd have to really pixel peep to see the difference. And and if you're having a problem with the dynamic range, it's going to be a problem on both. Yeah, you get at least a stop more, maybe 2 stops more dynamic range on the S5, depending on how you look at it. But you just bracket the shot and merge them back together. Do an HDR. Not the surreal type, but do a real high dynamic range shot by bracketing, by exposure bracketing. Put on a sharp lens, maybe even use high-res shot mode. You can get amazing images out of the OM1. So that might be an interesting comparison. Like compare the high-res shot with this 50 millimeter f1.8 and my OM1 high-res mode with a 25 millimeter f1.8. So we have the same field of view, and compare them, pixel peep them side by side, just as an academic exercise, right? Because in real life, what difference does it make? I'm not selling prints. For me, it doesn't make any difference, right? Because I'm not making a living doing landscape photography. But yeah, I'm not too excited about the Sigma FP. It just seems too nichey, too narrow of a use case. Because you wouldn't take that camera out and use it for anything else, right? And the drop $3 to $4 grand on a camera just to do one thing seems like there's better ways to spend your money. Like get an f1.2 lens from Olympus, a nice, really high grade pro lens. I think it would be money better spent than use high res shot mode on your Olympus camera, and you'll get probably 99% there of what the FP can do, to be honest. So yeah, thinking it through, that makes more sense to me. Is I would tell someone to buy a pro lens, put it on their Olympus system, rather than buy a whole other camera system to get more megapixels for a very niche. Because you'll get a lot more use out of a pro lens on your OM body than you ever will with a single FP camera. Yeah, I haven't looked at the FP that closely, so that's why it took me a little while, but I wanted to think it through a little bit. But that's my final answer. Buy pro lens, don't buy the FP. And that'll be money much better spent, in my opinion. Oh, that's cool, Rick. You got an owl in your backyard? Wow. I've seen an owl in my backyard once, and it wasn't even at this house. Owls are far and few between where I live. And then Rick is saying, very significant omission, not stressing the enormous advantage of IBIS for all photographs. Yeah, definitely. I think this is when we were talking about, some of the advantage of the Olympus. I think they do push the IBIS system, but not enough, right? What all the advantages of having that amazing IBIS in the system. Because yeah, I think this S5 has like 6 stops, they claim, of stabilization in it, but I cannot handhold this thing anywhere near as well as I can handhold my Olympus. I mean, where's my 25? You're not going to believe this. Oh wait. You will not believe the difference. Okay, do I have batteries in these? No. All right, I need a wire. It's like spaghetti on my desk here. All right, let's go to shutter priority. Okay, 1/60th of a second. Let's okay, so 1/60th is fine. Let's try 1/30th. 1/30th, okay. Let's go down to 1/15th. I'm just going to do it in full stops. Oops. Okay, not bad. 1/8. Ah, okay, 1/8 of a second. Let's try again. I'm going to try and be steady. Okay, so 1/8 of a second is about my limit here, right, with the S5. So 3 out of 3, I got motion blur, right? All right, let's do the Olympus. I hope you guys can still hear me. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. I'm just hand holding like this, taking a picture of my EM10 Mark II. All right, so let's go to shutter priority. And let's start at 1/30th. Let's start at 1/15th. So 1/15th of a second. Where's my focus? I can't see it on the screen here. Need to be in single point. Okay. Where's my focus point? There we go. All right. So how come I'm missing focus? Where's my focus point? It's hard to see. Let me go to a different screen. Okay, there it is. So we'll go to there. Okay, 1/15th of a second, tack sharp. Let's go to 1/8 of a second. Still tack sharp. Oh, wait, that looked a little bit motion blurry. Let's try one more time. Yeah, not bad. All right, let's go to 1/4 second. Still looking good. Half a second. Oh, That's mildly blurry. Let's see if we get 3 out of 3. Not bad. Not bad. So half a second is tough. There's just enough motion blur that I wouldn't use that image for a paid job. How about 1 second? I could probably get away with a half a second for like normal shots, but I wouldn't deliver a picture like that. Hold on. Okay, 1 second. Let's see. Yeah, 1 second definitely motion blur. Let's try one more. Yeah, definitely motion blur. So so at about 1 second, I was definitely getting motion blur every time, and at about 1/8 of a second, I was getting motion blur every time on this one. So that's what, 2 stops, right? 1/4, 1/2. At least 2 stops difference in the capability of, at least 2 stops, closer to 3 stops difference in image stabilization between the OM1 and the S5. Just in that informal test, I would say 2 to 3 stops difference. And I'm shaky because I've been drinking coffee. Okay. Oh, let's see. Man, am I why is my chat section, I'm way behind. I think I saw that 10:30. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Druid. It's all about specs. I meant to show your comment there, but you said Sony and YouTube made it all about specs, and you're right. Oh, Plato made it in. Hey, Plato. You've been here for gosh, 45 minutes now. Oof. And Tony Blackwell, this was about the battery question. I know this is really late, whoever was asking, but he says, yes, I'm talking the plastic latching boxes. I use them for my Nikon and Pentax battery. They are long enough for the Olympus batteries, just not wide enough without being way too long. Okay. Sorry, I'm so late here. Suresh is here. Hello, Rob. Please let me know how to make my 12 to 40 lens to front focus. It would depend on the camera you have. If you intentionally want it to front focus, there's a lens adjustment feature in the camera. I've never used it, so I can't tell you how much front focusing it would do. If you meant how do you get it to stop front focusing, that would also be in the same menu, right? Of the lens focus adjustment feature. I don't have my EM1 anymore. The Mark III is still here. Hold on. We need I assume I think you can only do this on the EM1s. So if you have any other camera, this is not going to work. AF. AF. So in menu A3, I can probably just show you. go to a different screen. So yeah, in the settings menu, menu A3, there's some, oops, went right past it. Right below this, maybe because I don't have a lens attached. Let me try. There's a focus adjustment here. And then you can add or subtract the focus point. So let me put it back to lens data. Or yeah, I've never used this feature, but this is here for a reason. And I assume it's to help you deal with or make adjustments to your lens focusing system, the front, back focus, something like that. Yay, green screen. So that's the best answer I can give you. I mean, if the lens is front focusing and you don't want it to, you might be able to fix it there. But to me, that sounds like something's wrong with the lens or your camera. It shouldn't be front focusing unintentionally. But if it is, you may be able to make an adjustment in that menu, but I don't know how to use it. So I can't help you much more than pointing you in that direction. I think if you go to MU43 forums, let me show you that site. Let's see. MU43 forum. Olympus cameras. There's a thread right here. EM1 micro focus adjustment, why and how to perform. So read through all of this. I haven't read it myself, so I can't speak to its, how good it is or bad it is. But the MU43 forum has been an awesome resource for me and many others with the Micro Four Thirds cameras. So I highly recommend, you join that forum regardless. But in that forum, in the Olympus camera thread, they have something very specific about micro focus adjustments, and that may help you. And Mark Sulaway is here. Good to see you. Oh, CNH, you finally got your own one. Well, congratulations. It's an awesome camera. I love my OM1. It's just amazing. What is this? Monokuro Buhakan. Monokuro Buhakan. Yeah, I got it. Monokuro Buhakan. Hi, Rob. Can you? Oh my God, my eyes are fading. Can you do a video face detect continual autofocus test? I can't remember. It didn't seem to perform that well when shooting in log. Perhaps because it was lower contrast. Would like to confirm. I have 2 videos on it already. One where it didn't do very well. I mean, it worked probably most of the time in the first video, but then in the second video, it worked 100%. And I was shooting log and everything else. So on my channel, you want to look at episodes, these 2 right here. So I did the video continuous autofocus face and eye detect where it really did poorly. And there's a caveat to that. I didn't do a full reset to the camera before I started testing. So it's possible there was a setting buried in the system that was causing it not to do too well. And then I did a follow-up video doing the same kind of testing, and it performed very well. So watch these two videos. This is episode number 363 and episode number 362. You guys are looking at a green screen, not my monitor. This is what I'm trying to show you. Is this video. Episode 363, where I do tests for that. Okay. Sorry about the green screen. I thought I should have looked. I got like 3 screens here, and I'm trying to manage these 3 plus the camera and the switch box. It's crazy. All right. So Rick took off. Thanks for dropping in, Rick. Appreciate it. I don't think I don't think they have a Kodak's Brownie film sim in my film pack. And yeah, Drew, we were talking about film simulations. Yeah, look at the DxO Film Pack 4 or 5. It's really good. There's another one called, I think, Exposure. I think they're on version 7. Exposure has a lot of film simulations built in as well, and it's a full-fledged photo editor. Film Pack is just sort of semi-photo editor and simulation software. And Coffee Chiller is tempted. I know full-frame cameras, they're, you know, I like having one. I bought this S5. I like having it, but it's not the camera I grab when I go out to shoot. Generally speaking, unless I'm intentionally wanting to shoot full frame. So the way I see it is, if you enjoy photography and you want to have a different experiences with different camera systems, you know, you can add a full frame system to your collection, right? Like I have everything. I have APS-C, full frame. Right now I got 2 full frame cameras. I got several APS-Cs, and the majority of my cameras are micro four thirds. And then I have some compact cameras like TG5, some bridge cameras by Fuji and others. I have everything. You know, I just love photography, and I love using the cameras for the different kind of experience and the different kind of images that I get. That's, you know, that's a very different it's very different purchasing decision when you're purchasing for it as a hobby, or if you have bad gas like me. But if you're purchasing as a hobby, you know, having all the different camera systems that you can afford or want to buy, I don't see the big deal, right? Just buy it and enjoy it and appreciate what each camera has to offer. And that's why like over the years, people have said, "Oh, you should be an ambassador for Olympus and all of that." And I'm like, I'm not so sure. Even if they asked me if I would accept a specific role in any particular brand, because I just enjoy all the different brands of photography. I would love to have a Leica, but I don't see that happening anytime soon, because right now, I don't mind spending $200 or $300 on a lens for any camera system that I have, but the big purchases, the major purchases I make are always from my micro four thirds system, because that's the system that gives me the most versatility and has great image. I mean, the image quality is fine for the way that I shoot and the things that I shoot. Um, so I don't want to take anything away from Micro Four Thirds, but sometimes having a full frame, man, it's like a different kind of experience. Now you can push and pull highlights and well, not highlights so much. Highlight recovery on their own systems are really good, but shadow recovery and high ISO noises on a different level. With full frame cameras when it comes to just normal photography. In astrophotography, it's not so much. It's better to have a smaller sensor. But in general photography, yeah, it's it's different. You get a little shallower depth of field, so you get a different look to your images. So it's just a different way of enjoying your hobby. But if you want to ask me about making a decision for a very specific purpose or job, my answer is going to be different across the board of the genres of photography. Like if you look at Emily from Micro Four Nerds, she uses the S5 and her GH6 now. Those are her two cameras that she uses for weddings. And that seems to be a perfect combination for her, right? That's not to say you couldn't get away with either camera by itself, but each camera has its kind of specialty, right? And one is a better tool than the other, depending on the situation. Um, but I get it. If you want a full frame, maybe get an older one, like a Nikon D750 or any of the Canons, the 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III. You can get those pretty cheap. And the reason I say Canon and Nikon is because I know the system glass is really good. But these are DSLRs, right? I know that the lenses you can get for them are excellent and they're very affordable. And it's a great way to get into a full frame system without spending a boatload of money. You can look at the Sony A7 II. I think it's the A7 II, the Mark II. They used to sell that with a lens for like $1,000. I don't know what they sell for now. I think they're closer to $1,300 now. But not that way you can get a brand new full frame system because they still sell it with a lens for about $1,300. And I'm in a position where I can make a buying decision because of it's part of my job, right? I do it for a living. So my camera buying decisions are more flexible in a way that I can justify a purchase. Like I bought the S5 for video work, but as a consumer and a hobbyist enthusiast, these decisions are very different, right? I wouldn't, buying a full frame system just to enjoy it is fine, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it, you know. Um, Honestly, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on any camera system as a hobbyist. Just buy a camera with the kit lens, and then as you grow and advance in your skill set, start looking at the more professional lenses, the higher grade lenses. But starting out, camera with the kit lens is about all you need. I mean, that EM10 Mark II with a 14 to 42 kit lens, man, that I rocked that thing for a couple of years, before I started getting into primes and things. Because the second lens I bought was the 40 to 150 kit lens. And that combination, that'll do everything. It'll do everything. Okay. But I get it. I get it. You get this itch to like I got an itch for Fujifilm, so I bought an XT30. For me and like many of us in Micro Four Thirds, we went from a full frame system to Micro Four Thirds because we like the form factor and the image quality and everything else we got out of it. Very little compromise in terms of image quality, but a huge improvement in size and weight, and compactness and features and ergonomics. There's just so many things that makes Micro Four Thirds for me the perfect camera system. And it's what I primarily use and want to take out when I go on my photo walks. I mean, I've only been taking this out and bought a lens for this recently because it's been sitting on my shelf and it's just being wasted. So I said, okay, let me get a lens I think I'm going to enjoy with this camera and go out and shoot with it. So at least I get some clicks on it. Eventually, I'll probably sell this, but I don't want to sell it with like virtually no clicks on it. That's a waste, you know. I want to use it and get some enjoyment out of it and then sell it. I know that sounds counterintuitive because people are like, oh man, you'll get more money if the camera has no clicks on it. But weigh that against the time and the pictures that I can take with it. The difference between a camera with virtually no shutter count on it versus the price of a camera that might have 20,000 clicks on it, the price difference is not that much, right? If they're in good condition. So I'd rather go out and take 20,000 images and enjoy the camera and everything it has to offer and then sell it. That little gap in price that I might lose by using it is minuscule compared to the enjoyment and fun that I'll have with the camera using it. If that makes any sense, right? Because I'm not buying cameras as an investment to resell. I'm buying them because I want to enjoy them and use them. Most of the time, that's why I'm buying. Sometimes I bought that for work, but now it's now it's been downgraded to just using it for just fun because the all-in-one system is now my primary work camera for both video and photo. And now the S5 has just become sort of this camera to go out and have fun with. Oh, I seriously doubt the Sigma has better ergonomics. If you saw it, it's about this big and the buttons are, oh man, I seriously doubt it, but who knows? I doubt it though. Oh wow, the Sony can do 200 megapixels, man. That's crazy. I doubt a lens could resolve that though. That's the thing with these high res modes is you need to have a lens that can resolve high resolution. And I can tell you that unless you're buying pro grade glass, and even then, uh, you're going to be lucky if the lens can resolve all 200 megapixels. I think there are some lenses from Leica that might be able to resolve 100 megapixels, you know, in their L mount and their APO series, their Summicron APOs. Or is it the Sumil? I think it's the Sumilux APO. Anyway, their AP. If it says APO on a Leica lens, that lens, particularly the L mount lenses, um, I think the 50 millimeter M mount APO is also right up there. But I've seen tests and things done with the APO L mount lenses. Oh my God. I think those lenses could easily handle, 40 to 60 megapixels, resolve every single pixel. And it may even go to 100 megapixels. We don't have a camera that can test that really, unless you do the high res shot mode. But I can't afford the Leica APO lenses. I mean, there's $6,000 and up, right? It's just I can't even afford to rent one. They want like $350 for like three or for what is it? I don't know. It wasn't long. It was less than a week. I think it was like 4 or 5 days. It was $350 to rent like an APO Leica lens. I can't do it. Uh, the Leica Q2. I think that's a fixed focal length though, right? I don't think I could do it for that. Um, Leica Q2, 47 megapixel. Yeah, it's a fix. It's got a Summilux, which that lens by itself is like $3,000 or something crazy, right? But it's fixed to the camera. Well, I can get a monochrome version. Wow. One day maybe I'll get a Leica, but not anytime soon. I'd rather get a Leica though with interchangeable lenses. Not that I could ever afford any lenses for it. I buy the camera and one lens, and that'd be it forever, probably for the rest of my life. So maybe the Q2 is the right answer. I don't know. Um, if you're going to get into Leica systems, I feel like why is this showing? Still showing? You need to be able to afford Leica and just buy all the things that you need to get when you buy, just like any other camera system if you need it. Um, this was back when I was doing the IBIS test, right? Yeah, Lauren cracks me up. I did get your emails, Lauren, with the Cobra. Those are nice shots of the Cobra, and the one before that of your street. I just like I said, I'd like to take some time to respond to those, but I haven't yet. But I did get your emails, and I did look at the images. Um, wow, Olympus can handhold 6 seconds and 10 seconds respectively. Wow, I'm not so. I mean, I was holding the camera like this, right? I was not holding it properly with, you know, my elbows tucked in and up to my eye. You know, the 3 point contact stuff. That's the way you're supposed to hold. I could probably get a good full second out of it that way, but just holding it kind of out a little bit like this, yeah, I was hurting. Yeah, Casey's video got you thinking about it more today. Uh, yeah, because I don't use the camera for vlogging, so that's why I only did the one test, and I didn't really, I just wanted to try it. It's this idea, you should be able to turn a camera on, set it up, right, and then it should work. And if it wasn't working as well as you'd expected, um, obviously don't just look at my videos. Look at everybody like Casey at Camera Conspiracies. Watch his because he's pretty much the same thing, right? Turn it on, set the settings, and see what happens. The only person that I think would do is I don't know if he ever got one, but Gerald Undone, he would check he would tell you exactly what's going on. Another good person I know is Gordon Lang, but his tests are very short, relatively speaking. You're looking for very specifically how it performs in log mode with autofocus. I don't think that's something Gordon Lang would check for. But I think that's something if Gerald Undone ever did a video on the OM1, he would check for that, I'm sure. Yeah, and this was back about full frame. I was talking about the noise performance. And Marco makes a good point. I mean, software now really takes care of a lot of the noise issues that, and by noise issues, I mean noise that is disturbing, right? And making the image unusable to something very usable uh, in software now. There's no substitute for a good, clean image. The old montage garbage in, garbage out. But ultimately, for most of us as enthusiasts, as photographers that just want to enjoy the craft and have a nice compact light system, software takes care of things amazingly. I did do a few tests of my S5 and my OM1 at high ISO, like 51,000, right? And I processed both of them in uh, in Photolab 5 with Deep Prime because if you're going to process one file with deep prime, you should process the other one to be fair, right? And yeah, the S5 was a tiny bit better at ISO 5000 after processing, but it wasn't like night and day. It wasn't like, the OM1 is suddenly just not usable at 51,000 ISO. Let me see if I can find it. Rather than just BS about it, I can show you the images. Hopefully I didn't delete them because I do so much pruning. Because when you're using the OM1 with Pro Capture and a high-speed shutter, like in 3 seconds you got 1,000 images. Well, not 1,000, but a lot, right? You're doing 50 frames per second for 3 seconds. That's 150 frames. So in 1 minute of shooting, you can easily get thousands of images. So I've been pruning the heck out of it. I bet I should be able to find it pretty quickly. Let me see. Because I wasn't that long ago I was doing this. Assuming I haven't deleted them already. Give my Lightroom here a chance to catch up. And while this is loading, I'll see if I can address Adams. I haven't noticed any issues like this in mine. I've only done 2 photo jobs with my OM1, which is about 30 minutes of video, and then I edit those down to a 2-minute YouTube thing, right? For delivery to the client. And in so in real life, I've only recorded professionally about an hour's worth of video. And I hadn't noticed it. Outside of that, I rarely do video with the OM1. I'll have to, so with that limited experience, I can say, no, I haven't experienced it, but I haven't done a whole lot of video with it. Unfortunately, I'd like to get more freaking video jobs, but it's, everybody's clamping down. Most of my agents, they just want photos, and I'll say, I can throw in video for another $150. I mean, it's not that much, right? And I said, no, it's okay. I don't charge much for what I do. Like my last job, I charged $425, and that included video. So I delivered like 35 images and a 2-minute video for $400, just to give you some perspective of what I charge. And that's kind of low, because this guy that I did it for, I always give him a really good discount. All right, let me find this file. Let's see, Nikon, because I also compared the Nikon DF. Oh, it's gone. I think I deleted them. Because I compared the Nikon DF, the Panasonic S5, and the OM1 at like 51,000 ISO. And let me just pick. Oh, wait, I had one of the filters on. Hold on, let's see now. Yeah, it's not. Let me turn these filters off. I got all the filters off. Where's so Nikon. Oh, the Nikon's not there. And second quarter, yeah. So because I did this recently, let me check first quarter. Nikon DF. Yeah, no, those are not the ISO comparison tests. Nothing. DC S5. Let's see. Let's see if I have any high ISO here. Nope. I have these at 6400 ISO, so I already deleted them. Oh, well. Ooh, there's an update here on DxO. New camera supported. OM System 1. Awesome. Good news. Sorry, you guys can't see this. DxO, it's been able to read the OM1 files and I could apply deep prime, but I didn't have the optical corrections. So DxO Photo Lab now has OM System. That's good. So we'll say yes to that. All right, I'll do that later. But Adam, I'll look for that pausing. I wasn't looking for it, so I hadn't noticed it. But I'll look for the pausing. Ain't that the truth? If you have to look at the price, you can't afford it. That's so true. Sorry. Okay. We're fine. Today's Thursday, right? Okay. Ooh, it's 12 o'clock. Do a software update while running the show. It's downloading. I can do it. Oh, wait. Anyhow. Let's see. Oh, it's done downloading. That was fast. My God, can you imagine what kind of stream am I doing if I'm going to start doing software updates in a stream? I'll go down to like maybe one viewer, just be you and I, Adam. Oh, John is here. My gosh, you're really late because I'm just about to wrap up actually. Coffee chiller. Yeah, unfortunately the links won't show. You just have to spell it out phonetically if you want to share your Instagram link. Yeah, did you see they got a camera for like $20,000 now? I saw it on the Photo News Fix by Fro. $20,000 Leica. It's like a special edition silver or something. 20 grand. I mean, 200, they're going to make 250 of them. So times 20 grand, that's $5 million. $5 million for just a limited edition camera. Wow. And they'll probably sell out. And Randy says this D500 is stickier when it comes to focusing. Yeah, I know the D500 is pretty awesome. I've never used it though. It was on my short list until I bought an EM10 Mark II. Because I wanted to replace my D750 with the D500. But I didn't do a lot of sports action stuff at the time. So I said, I'd rather have a small camera. So I bought an EM10 Mark II instead of a D500 at the time because they were both out about the same time. Have you seen this at all? Oh, I'm sorry. You did ask this. So let me get this straight. So you're shooting in 4K, getting glitches. When it's catching focus or stabilizing. So the other thing I would need to know, Adam, if you're still here, just write in the comment what focal length you're using, and I'll try and replicate what you're talking about. Because you were talking about glitching and pausing. If you're using a wide angle lens with electronic image stabilization, I could see where there might be an algorithm problem where it is pausing and then jumping, right? Electronic image stabilization does tend to do that. So, and that's not really a glitch so much as that's just how it's programmed. They could program it maybe differently, but it's more obvious on wide angle lenses because you got an entire frame and then you're panning to the right, but the frame doesn't move, and then suddenly it shifts over. So it looks like it's paused a little. That may be what you're talking. That may be what's happening. Try shooting something in log without electronic image stabilization. Just do optical and see if you get the same problem. That would be my first suggestion. If you haven't tried it already, try shooting with sensor stabilization only, particularly with wide angle lenses, but any lens really. Sensor shift only, and see if that fixes the problem. Because I know digital stabilization does pause sometimes. And I think that's true of any digital stabilization system. It does that. And they can tune it or tweak it to do less, but then it may not be as effective, right? So try that. No, don't go. Hey, thank you for doing these. Oh, you're too kind, Adam. Hopefully you're still here and you can answer that question. So you're using the 12 to 40. And do you know if you're using electronic or digital stabilization or just sensor only? That'd be my next question, but 15-minute video. If you're uploading in 4K, definitely. My videos upload pretty quickly, actually. Even a 30-minute video only takes like 15 minutes. The processing takes forever. Once it's loaded onto YouTube, my God, man, it might sit there for an hour sometimes. Usually, the time it takes to upload it is about the same time as it takes to process it and actually start to display. But yeah, I get it. Sometimes I know well, let's not talk about Walter. But I know one time I uploaded a video and it didn't process till the next day. And that's when I started looking into problems, or things to try to mitigate that problem. But I didn't find anything. But now, anything that really worked. But now when I upload, it's 10 or 15 minutes to upload a video, and then like 10, 15 minutes to process it, because they do all kinds of checks and things, I guess, now on YouTube. Yeah, definitely try sensor only, and that may fix the problem that you're having. Because if you're noticing the glitches when you're panning or moving, that's definitely electronic stabilization. If you're just sitting still and a person's walking across and they freeze and then move, yeah, that's not right. But if you're panning and it freezes, that might be the digital stabilization. All right, I'm going to call it. I need to eat some lunch and cut the grass. Oh my God, my grass is so tall. So thanks everybody for joining me today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed today's show. I really appreciate you being here. I certainly enjoy having all of you here with me. Um, even like I said, my streams, I never have any topic planned, really, very rarely. But being able to come down and sit down and talk to you guys about photography, I can just babble on about anything photography related, and you guys are very gracious to participate and make me feel like your friend, really. Like I really feel like you guys are my friends, and we can talk about anything for hours, right? And that's why I do these streams, even though they may not be fully productive or have high production value or have any educational value. It's really just about getting together and talking about photography, and that's why I do these streams. I will try to do some more topic orientated streams, but for the most part, thanks everyone for joining me today. I just wanted to let you know I do appreciate it, and you guys have a great weekend. I may be back Sunday. Sundays are getting, like I said, because of summer, things are going on. So I'm usually doing activities on Sundays instead of streaming. But either way, um, I will. I appreciate you being here, and we will see you again soon.